of course, I'm not nuts. I could not get into I'm 85, I could not get into a Lotus. I had advanced arthritis. Or did I have the strength to do a flying Lotus? So, everything is miraculously possible with this wellness program that was initiated based on biblical, historical truths that eventually we went deep into that same ministry and acquired many of the teachings that merged with Ann Wigmore. Also, Harvard Medical Library. I spent over 3,000 hours while being with Ann Wigmore for 7 years. I studied health from the medical point of view and managed to extrapolate and using that as a foundation, create holistic concept of wellness and survival in the 21st century, which sold over 500,000, was the foundation for a holistic approach. Basically, it involved not only physical, dietary, but also fitness, wellness, exercise, as well as spiritual, emotional, and mental. These are attributes that are important. Now, over the years, we have continued to improve. We certainly started off knowing really nothing. The thing is, in life, when you find your passion, first of all, to me, to be a lecturer or to be a speaker was out of the question. I was scared, poop-wise, being in public in terms of speaking. That was out of the question. No, when you make a commitment and you find your passion, then life starts supporting you. They say if you write down a commitment, then the universal forces conspire to enable you to make it achieve, especially if you use the I am. Whatever you want to become, you just keep on repeating, I am that particular thing. I am a speaker, I'm a lecturer, I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist. Whatever you want in life, I'm happy, I'm holy. Keep on decreeing. Never say I'm sick and tired or I'm tired. So these are things that to be avoided. Whatever you decree comes to reality. And remember this as being an important part of your healing process. We're here with Ann Wigmore. So the holistic model was actually brought into the alternative into the medical community. It was initiated by President Johnson when he did a speech on the health of the nation already in the late 60s. According to World Health Organization figures, 65% of Americans were suffering from old age, chronic, incurable diseases. 25% of the children. Right now, in the 2024, you have around 80% suffering from basically incurable diseases. Basically, the average American, and many of us are non-consumers. I have taken no medication in my life outside of 6 aspirin when I was a child. So basically, they're consuming over 20 different medical prescriptions, and they're spending over $4 trillion in the Medicare, according to studies that have been done yearly since 2006. Basically, American healthcare system among the 9 top nations basically showed to be not only the most expensive, but also the lowest in performance among the 9 nations. This is simple nations like where I live in Costa Rica, Nicoya Peninsula, one of the blue zone countries. Basically, they have the highest longevity. They also have on the happiness index, which is rated yearly for the last 7 years, has been the happiest country in the world on the index, whereas the United States rated around 43. So the country's not doing well in their lifestyles, even though, like I said, President Johnson told the Surgeon General to Dr. Koch to investigate and find out why America is the sickest nation in the world. Matter of fact, in Boston Globe in 1990, head of Harvard Medical School, he said in his editorial entry in that particular piece, he said, we got to do something to figure out because we don't know what the hell we're doing. Well, 2024 comes around, they still don't know what they're doing. And thank God to the people like Anna Maria and Brian Clements. They maintained that flagship pole of energy, bringing forth continuous improvement of what little knowledge we had when we were starting. Well, that Surgeon General report basically said that after 10 years of research, a 1,000-page paper, right in the first chapter is stated, as far as wellness and health is concerned, it's stated that, mind you, do not expect any help from your medical doctors, any help from hospital, or any scientific breakthrough. The whole thing relies on 5 principles: diet, exercise, your attitude, your sleep, which is rest and recovery and detoxification, and the environment within which you live. So basically, and not much has been done in the mainstream as far as mass media. Like 83% of Americans are overweight, over 66% are obese, and basically we're not doing at all well. And these are the foundations for all kind of disease. So basically, what was really the considered ideal diet? Well, they certainly didn't know. They thought cutting down a little bit on fat. Well, we're finding that the only diet that seems to be giving consistent results is a diet of high volume of intake of basically baby foods, namely sprouts, also early immature greens, and such as sunflower, buckwheat, which I invented, and pea greens, as well as also the consumption of basically fresh food. And the fresher it is from your garden, or from your, especially that's where the indoor gardening concept is so invaluable, the higher is the, you might say, the energy that is being emitted. For instance, if you take an orange, you pick it from a tree, an hour later it lost over 50% of its enzymatic content. So the more you eat microgreens, and that would be the baby greens that you grow at home, and the more you eat sprouts, the more you eat fermented foods. These are the things of the future. Matter of fact, Megatrends stated that that was by John Nesbitt. He stated in the field of biology, the highest expectation in health and wellness in the field of biological sciences will come from fermented and enzymatic foods. And basically, and another book called Enzymes, the Fountain of Life, by 3 medical doctors, Mielke, Lopez, and Williams. Basically, in chapter 19 from the Pharmaceutical Bible, basically it states that the greatest hope and expectation in the field of therapeutic pharmacology is enzymology. And this is what's creating miracles. We are one of the few resorts that basically every meal you're eating is extremely high in enzymes. Now, current literature and study, all kind of clinical studies and summary and reviews states that all chronic diseases are due to indigestion. And basically the foundation for indigestion is basically loss of your enzymatic reserves. And enzymes are basically something that you have a high volume of when you're at birth. Though there are some children that are based on mother's diet and mother's emotional states might have very low, and depending on your enzymatic and alkalinity determines basically how well you're going to perform against in the world to come, how well you'll be able to handle dietary as well as emotional stress, environmental stress, all these different stresses. But basically, we are suffering basically 93%, according to 2006 journal in cardiology, stated that in 2006, which was a study that was initiated about 6 years prior, so the figures were not exactly altogether accurate, but by that time already 93% of Americans are metabolically inflexible. Now, you probably mostly say, what the hell is metabolic inflexible? It just means that you're incapable to metabolize or digest
basically protein, fat, and starch. It's so devastating. And now studies show, for instance, Dr. Sumner, in his book, The Secret of Life, Enzymes, Dr. Sumner states by the time you hit mid-age, 95% of amylase is not there. And when you don't have amylase, then the starches, which make up a major portion of the diet, start turning sour, and acidification becomes the foundation, especially due to food combining. Like, for instance, everybody's eating acid food with starches. That's a good example is pizza, spaghetti, any of the Italian dishes, acid dressings, and also starchy carbs. So what you're experiencing is inability when we studied early in high school, they tell you starch has to be digested in an alkaline environment, and you got to have amylase present. So you have an epidemic of acid diseases, acid reflux. So basically, and one of the things after the enzymes I'll be covering is alkalinity, which is the number 2 component. Enzymology is a dominant theme over here. And I'm actually, as far as enzymology, I brought the father of enzymology, namely Dr. Edward Howell, to the public world. I discovered by accident, as I was working at Harvard Medical Library, I discovered his manuscripts. It was with 500 medical journal references. The book was, the manuscript pieces were entitled, Food Enzymes and Metabolism and Digestive Disorders. So, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll keep it going. He was an elderly person. The book was published in 1939, and that's the year I was born. And I couldn't find records of his death, so I started searching for him. 2 years it took me. I found him in Venice, Florida, and he was doing basically soil-based bacteria research. So I talked with him, and he gave me permission to reprint the manuscripts and also to do an interview of him. And also he trained me in enzymology and how to prepare formulas and stuff like that. And also basically I wrote a 60-page premise to it to bring it up to 1975 literature data. So basically, that was laid the foundation. After that, there were many translations, and enzyme nutrition became one of the popular versions, and that made a huge spread in enzymology. Now, basically, and then I ended up getting involved with a company, Celtec, for over 25 years. That's the blue-green algae company, and primarily I was their head promoter. So I put together Don't Dine Without Enzymes, and we ended up also blue-green algae. And the blue-green algae are basically something like you find at the store called Blue Magic. Basically, my grandmother, as an example, she had Alzheimer's disease, and that's what forced me to leave Ann Wigmore. I was with her for 7 years. My mother said, you got to come back home and take care of Mom because no one else is there. Because father and mother were working, and no one was to take care of her. So I did, and she had Alzheimer's and bedridden. She refused to make any dietary changes. So I prayed, and I didn't know too much about supplements, but I knew about blue-green algae and its research by Victor Coleman on Alzheimer's disease improvement. So I said, so she refused to eat better diet, so I gave her enzymes, so it made her digestion of what she ate. Then, of course, her gastrointestinal was stuck, so I gave her a mild herbal laxative. Then her circulation was deadly, so I gave her cayenne in capsules, and then, of course, blue-green algae. I gradually built it up to about 10 capsules per day within 3 weeks, and then I cut down slowly. And by 5th week morning, she was out of bed in the morning at 2 o'clock, already prepared breakfast. My mother, when she came down to go to work, she couldn't believe it, thought she just passed out. But my grandmother lived for another 3 years, taking care of the household and doing everything normal for a person, and she died of dietary toxemia, because that's what's killing all. It's the number one addiction is food, and the kind of food that people are choosing to eat, and it's the number one cause of all death, basically. And so basically, now enzymes are basically have been not only research pioneered, but you can go to PubMed and just start looking for protease, amylase, lipase, and you'll find all kind of research data where it's all beneficial. Dr. Chin-Po Kim, basically, he published a research paper that was the research paper involved cancer, all forms of cancer with 5-year follow-ups. And basically, he found that 79% recovery. Well, the only input into their changes was they had enzymes with meal and enzymes on an empty stomach. So enzymes in the meal took care of the digestion. Enzymes in between meals on an empty stomach were absorbed and empowered the immune system. Dr. Leskovar showed that orally administered enzymes on an empty stomach within 20 minutes increased your immune function by 1,100%. No other supplement, no other herb or anything, no other lifestyle will do that kind of a change, except for Jesus. That works pretty good too. So, wow. And basically, radical increase in immune function, and that aggressively cleans up basically the cancers, the dead cancer cells that are floating. Now, what kills cancer cells? Well, believe it or not, it's wheatgrass. Wheatgrass is loaded with cyanic acid. That is vitamin B17 and better known as Laetrile. And basically that cyanide, when you ingest it, of course, is poisonous, but your cells have an enzyme called beta-arogenase, and it neutralizes the cyanide and it's passed by way of urine. And you have kind of a little off smell on the urine that is the same like you get it from almonds. Almonds is the other big source. Asparagus is another big source of Laetrile. And also sprouts and all these kind of sources. So with the wheatgrass effect, you kill the cancer cells, but now you're stuck with the garbage of dead cancer cells. And basically, so you got to have a strong immune system. The people who are doing Laetrile therapy, yeah, they kill cancer cells. Well, what happens? They don't resolve the problem. Namely, they completely metabolize proteins that are interfering with oxygen transport. So that is leading to death itself. So you end up maybe seeing improvements, but also you're dying from it unless you make some radical improvements by way of diet and taking enzymatic supplements. And the beauty of enzymatic supplements is Hippocrates is one of the few companies in the world that has astrazyme in it. I was involved in basically with a company, New Life in Taiwan, and they about over 25 years ago, they basically put in over $10 million in researching to find some kind of compounds out of Chinese herbs that would increase the absorption of amino acids, because amino acids is central in the regenerative process of rebuilding your tissues. As an example, your mouth is rebuilt every 24 hours, your skin about every 2 to 3 weeks, your gastrointestinal tract every 3. That's a body self-regenerating, continuously generate, but in order to rebuild, you gotta have all the 9 essential amino acids. And also you got to have alkalinity to create the electrical voltage needed for this chemistry to occur, and you also need oxygen. So these are 3 key components that Hippocrates provides: alkalinity and oxygen. Oxygen by way of regenerating the anemic condition that most people are in, very low absorption of oxygen, and very low red blood cell count. The standards of what is considered what would be considered basically anemia has been lowered quite a few times. In my book, I quote the research that was done with different chlorophyll greens, basically, and they all overcame every form of anemia, including pernicious anemia. So it's pretty fascinating. It's part of our program. So basically, the regenerative process, you shed every day. Now take it into your headspace. You shed every day about 2 pounds. They said kilo, and depending on your toxemia, you shed it. You might be shedding 3 pounds, or if you're in a very good, healthy dietary lifestyle, you might be shedding only 1 pound of dead cells that your body's throwing away because they wear out. They wear out on all levels. They're basically, and the regeneration means body has the whole mechanism of replacement. And in order to carry on the chemistry of life, basically every second you have not 10 reactions taking place in your body, but you have 10 followed by 27 zeros. That's trillion number of chemical reactions taking in your body, and all of them are dependent on alkalinity, enzymes, and oxygen, and plus a good nutrition, especially the full spectrum of minerals. And Hippocrates provides you full spectrum minerals just by grabbing from the olives. There's a little bit of sea salt. Grabbing from your dulse, you've got also, again, not only high mineral sea vegetable, but also a little bit from the ocean sea salt. And this stuff is magic. And minerals, as an example, I'll just share with you my work with Dr. Maynard Murray, who basically passed away in, I believe, 1986. Primarily, he did research in agriculture. He wanted to radically improve the nutrition and health of the nation. And he was looking for the healthiest people around, and he found them to be coastal people. And he tried to determine what, and he figured out it's the salt in the soil, the salt in the air, basically full spectrum of minerals. Because basically there's a book entitled Elements for the Genetic Code. Basically it shows that all of the elements are important for building the most perfect, optimal genetic makeup. And the body has many different levels of DNA it goes through. When you have abusive, poor minerals, poor other lifestyle nutrients, but it's the minerals. The minerals are the building blocks, not only of the DNA, but Dr. Hagiwara says minerals are the enzymes for the enzymes. They really, especially magnesium and zinc, they're involved in over 1,800 different enzymatic reactions in your body. So you're very much mineral dependent, and you can degenerate, like for instance myself, in physiognomy, which is a science over 5,000 years. I have long earlobes. Right now, and people who were born in the 30s and 40s, take a look, all of them long earlobes. And basically, and right now, take a look at high school, or just look around. What kind of earlobe do you have? You have hardly any earlobes. Most people have no earlobe. 95% people don't right now. Basically, and the children right now have really none of them, because it has to do with lack of minerals. And already in 1932, the Department of Agriculture entered into the congressional records basically the fact that the United States at that time already 95% of the people were deficient in one or more essential minerals, whereas at that time was only about a dozen or so minerals. They're discovering that every mineral is very essential. I was blessed in a sense living in Lithuania in a farm with floodplains, so all of the minerals would be deposited in our soil, so everybody was strong, vital, and healthy, except, like someone like myself, I was exposed to all kind of stress, including being inoculated, and I went to the coma for 3 weeks. I had my grandmother sew me up with a 14-inch cut that happened on the farm. And I went in a coma for another 4 weeks, and all kind of violences, just all kind of things. So myself, I was quite compromised, and I had migraines for over 30 years, and I was also basically bleeding ulcers by 16, and also I did not start speaking, and I mean it, I had no language skills or body skills, so I couldn't walk more than 100 meters, and I just would be exhausted, running out of breath because I was anemic as a child. They kept me feeding superfoods, and what those superfoods were, nowadays they call them inflammatory foods. They thought they were doing good for me, high protein diet, which was all cooked dairy product, cooked eggs and cooked meat. So basically, I didn't do too well in terms of, but having a strong genetic constitution, I survived all of this stuff, and I kept having a vision that basically that there's a better way to life. And in spite of all the limitations, I managed through spiritual practice, and then eventually made a certain progress on my mental capacity. So I went from basically mentally retarded in school, cheating through classes, and having all kind of difficulties. I ended up basically discovering meditation, the kind that you just lay in the bed and basically practice deep relaxation and just listen only to the sound of breath. And within 6 months, because I was insomniac, and within 6 months, I was not only sleeping well, but also basically I found a new kind of energy, a transformation. They call it basically radical revamping of my body, and new synchronicities started developing in my mind. So I started studying for the first time, working on remembering, memorizing, and it's like a body that had no physical and muscle tissue. By exercising, I was studying basically 16, 18 hours. Even in fact, when I worked in factories, I would be studying. I would take some cards to memorize, or writing poetry, or multiplying numbers in my head. Exercise. So my mind continued to improve. And they say, use it or lose it. Well, basically I didn't use it at all prior to my 16 years of age. And basically I managed to not only graduate with honors in high school, but also was teaching college mathematics, as well as working on Apollo, working for Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. And then I dived into medicine, joining Ann Wigmore. So coming back, finishing up a little bit more with the cancer situation, that was a little bio kind of intervention, a commercial for Rick Doris. And basically, in other words, I had a tough life. Emotional quotient was pretty much like around 10, and my IQ was, according to 8th grade, was somewhere around 70. So that's what I started off with. So, but the reason I'm telling you this, anything is possible. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your children just because they got some kind of issue. Love is the answer. It is the answer. And love, touch, kindness, smiling. Never say no. Always give a more positive response. So in cancer, the first book published on cancer therapy, guess what? It was in 1912 by John Beard. The book was entitled Enzyme Therapy for Cancer. And he was working with pancreatic cancer, and he noticed there was hardly any enzymes, pancreatic enzymes. So he thought, what the hell? Maybe I should take it from fresh, young, because young have lots of enzymes. So slaughtered animals. So he extracted the pancreatic enzymes, and he also basically sanitized them, cleaned it up, and did a lot of kind of removing all other substances and filtration. And he fed it to his clients, and he basically had practically 100% success. Others people have tried to do it, but they used old pancreas, or basically from either old animals or pancreas that has been in a freezer. Any of that stuff was not effective. The only other person followed up on the enzymology many years later, about 20 years later, was Max Wohl, who I had that whole benefit, and he ended up being associated with Columbia University, and basically he had eight PhDs, and he was an MD, brilliant scholar, but he pioneered the animal-based enzymes. But right now, the most potent are the plant-based enzymes, especially what you have in systemic enzymes, serrapeptase, and also nanopeptase. Basically, they're about 14 times stronger than the pancreatic-based enzyme therapy that they initiated, but they were getting excellent results in all kinds of conditions. For instance, when you're young, you have lots of enzymes, and by the time you're 27, your body radically functions the pancreatic enzymes. By the time, and basically you see that prior, when you're a teenager, you can be on a sports team, and you can exercise 2 to 3 hours. Next day, you exercise 2 to 3 hours. Now you're in a team, basically you're in your 30s, you exercise and you take time out for recovery. And an enzymatic was Dan O'Brien, as example. I worked with Dan O'Brien. He basically was an average athlete, and an average athlete was good enough to compete internationally. And he was in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Basically in our company, not my company, but the company I work with, Celtec, basically targeted him, and we got him to agree to get into our products. So all he could do is exercise 1 hour a day, every day. He had ambitions to try to go to Olympics, and of course that was far-fetched because it takes 6 to 8 hours of hardcore exercise. Like one of my dearest friend, Fernando, up in Costa Rica, he's like #1 in gymnastic bars, and basically he exercises 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, and he's in his 30s. But he's on enzymatic nutrition and doing all the other good things, vegan diet. So anyways, with Dan O'Brien, we put him on high volume of enzymes, probiotics, and also gluconeology, something that pretty much suited for an athlete with a strong constitution. And within 5 weeks, he was exercising 7 to 8 hours and ended up going to 1995 Olympics and winning in decathlon, which is the most difficult, most challenging experience that you could go through. And he got, gold in all these categories, became #1. He was competing with men 10 years younger than him. So it just shows how you can become younger, not only with enzymology. I have consumed enzymes for over 45 years, basically on a daily basis. I don't skip a day, even though majority of my diet is raw foods. And for periods of time, even on all raw, I still consume enzymes because you're challenged by environmental factors and stress. You're living in such a stressful environment and stressful society that you need support for your immune function, and that's what enzymes do. You need support for your metabolic activities, and that's what enzymes are needed in the regenerative process. And you need a support for your digestion. And most people are stressed out. When you're stressed out, you're in a flight-fight mode. You know what that means? That your body centralizes all this energy in legs, arms, and trunk. Not for digestion. Digestion is shut off. So basically, the food sours and gets spoiled. And like I said, most people are in the digestive stress. Many times, people, they go to business meetings, a lot of stress, a lot of competition. That's all stressful. Basically, the digestion is rampant. But if you take enzymes, you don't have these kind of problems. And you're going to basically, with enzyme taken with the meals, the biggest improvement you can make on yourself while here, take 1 to 2 digestive enzymes, and the systemic enzymes, basically whatever they prescribe for you, but I would start off with only 1 for a couple of days on an empty stomach, AM or PM, and then after a few days, 1 AM and 1 PM, then after a few more days, take another 1 between meals, and then increase it gradually to whatever you want. But if you took a load of it, like give you example, one morbidly obese woman that was here, her dosage recommended was basically was basically 4, and she ended up on the first day doing 4. She got broke up in hives, got such cleansing reactions, you know, and she was ready to go to emergency. I said, don't worry, just stay calm, hydrate yourself, take an enema, take a sauna, keep the detox going. Next day she was perfectly fine, and I cut down to eat again, back to 1, gradually build up to where she was taking 4 within a matter of 2 weeks. So basically it's a gradual, because it increases your vitality and cleansing. It breaks down senescent cells as well as zombie cells that are circulating in your body, and as well as fat cells. Fat cells especially, they're loaded with forever chemicals, they're loaded with heavy metals, they're loaded with all kind of pesticides, insecticides that are in the air, aluminum, strontium, all these kind of things. So basically, you can overload your detox. That's why it's very important to strengthen your liver and kidney and make a point, like we have in our salad bar. We have dandelion, most people would benefit, arugula. These are very good for your kidney and also your liver, the detox organs. So do that and make sure you always. Also, I'm going to just kind of do a few interventions, and basically a few things that I want you to remember is basically not only the enzyme usage, but also when you're eating, try to start off with smaller size meals. And then the other thing is kind of go gentle on the amount of basically olives, because they're strong fruits and they're very excellent for you, but it could be a little too much in terms of the kind of compounds that it contains. And that sauerkraut or kimchi, 1 tablespoon, because I would say everybody that comes here quite extremely acidified. 1 tablespoon is more than enough. This way you get the full benefits of the microbes, and also you're going to do well. Now when you get the meal at your table, it's very important. Ann Wigmore, matter of fact, the Ann Wigmore Institute up in Puerto Rico, they have a whole class on chewing. Basically, and all it is just learn to chew at least 15, 20, even 30 times until the meal is turned to liquid. Now some people might find it kind of difficult, so you can request the staff at the kitchen to have the salad either chopped or blended. Now if you had it blended, then basically you end up losing up to 85% of the overall nutrient profile, according to research that was done by Dr. Brian Clements. So the thing is basically kind of avoid that. It's kind of like eating something cooked, but it's going to be extremely beneficial. But primarily try to emphasize the chop, basically only chops it up, and it doesn't do the damage that you get through blending. So just be aware of. So by taking enzymes, you overcompensate for any kind of damage done by either procedure. So, but chewing is so important, and then try to basically just keep the size of the meals, not to overdo, so you don't walk away bloated. I used to do that. I was a glutton, totally out of control eater, but never felt good. Now I eat small meals and I feel fantastic. So that's a very important kind of awareness. And then basically another thing is emotional and mental health greatly is determined by exercise. Exercise by either doing walking. One of the best exercises systems is Qigong, especially where you're doing tapping down the organs. Basically, when you're doing tapping down the organs, basically with Ken Blue or some of the other Qigong people, and doing all the acupuncture meridians by stroking, tapping down the chi. You basically download biological, you surround it, not only you have 5 bodies that you live in, basically, so we're all multiple personalities. Some of us have 10 or more personalities. Depending on the occasion, we'll talk differently with grandmother, we'll talk differently with the so these are different personalities that are available for us, and we kind of keep, and these personalities keep on growing. Some could be little nuts, but you kind of deal with multiple. So then the next is this astral body, biological, physical body, astral body that holds the blueprint of your blueprint of your biology so that it contains the perfect body. And we'll give you an example. And then when you are basically in, like trauma as an example, let's say you get an injury. I broke my kneecap about 35 years ago at a retreat center that I was going to be conducting a retreat for the weekend. 150 people were there. Were to be arriving. I was alone, so I dropped to in the puddle of water. It was raining quite heavy, and basically I just was screaming. Now the scream causes well, that activates the heart chakra. That increases the magnetic field of the heart, and you can find that information in the Heart Institute. It increases the power of the magnetic field by over 10,000 times. It becomes, and now the north and pole, south pole magnetism between your hands becomes so powerful. I did the laying of the hands, and that's not that I knew anything about laying a hand. I just went for that area because that's what you respond to any trauma. That's how beautiful your body's designed to respond appropriately. And I just held it, I kept screaming. Knives were shooting through my heart. And within 5 minutes, it became fire. That lasted for a couple of minutes more, and then it cooled down. I looked, there was no scars, no black and blue marks, nothing broken. I went back to unloading my pickup truck with all that stuff I brought for the retreat. So, and I've used this technique not hundreds of times, thousands of times on different traumas that I inflicted or doing it on others. Anybody can do it, but the more alkaline is your diet, the more you're going to be able to experience higher power and more rapid recovery. So anyways, that's kind of, and the last component, so I mentioned, the research that was done on estrogen. It was involved $10 million and over 12 years of research, and they isolated a compound that was made up of astragalus extract and also nanoginseng. And they found that increased absorption of amino acids by 60%. Well, many years later, myself and my partners, 4 of us, we invested money again to do another study. We added the enzyme compound, and we called the mineral compound, and we called that mixture astrozyme, which is included in the Hippocrates digestive enzyme. And basically, and our research showed that increased rate of absorption by 72%. Now this year in Taiwan, they did a study with estrogen, and they found with 40, it was first time they used live subjects that had colitis, inflammatory diseases, leaky gut syndrome, Crohn's, different conditions, and they found they all recovered within 2 months. Because what happens is now the regenerative process has all the amino acids needed, and because the proteins are digested completely, and then they are absorbed up to 72%. So basically, and then the rebuilding process complete. And these are definitely are very difficult conditions, and most people have a thinning of the GI tract continuously going on because with aging and radical reduction of their enzymatic composition, basically because they don't eat enzymatic nutrition, they don't take superfoods and enzymes and sprouts and macrobeans, which are highest in basically enzymes. So they're not getting it. So the digestive process is really compromised, and amino profile is so low. Like for instance, if you take a steak and grill it, you lose up to 85, actually not around 85% of the bioavailability of the protein. So you're getting more like 10-13% protein out of that steak. And then of course it generates in the process of eating all kind of carcinogenic, and it's poisoning you even further. So it's kind of moving on its way, creating thick, slimy, basically bloodstream, which reduces your oxygen transport and reduces your ability to function at an optimal level. So you can see why, and you'll find all the rationale for why people should be vegans, basically in my book, Survival in the 21st Century, as well as in many other vegan books and vegan podcasts. Vegan is like the most powerful movement we have changed the direction of our culture, because now you can get what vegans use. Well, they use, especially raw food, they use dehydrators, they use blenders, they use juicers. We had, when we started, Ann Wigmore and myself, there was only like one manual juicer for wheat, that we could juice wheatgrass and other greens. Now there's dozens of them, and the price has dropped radically. Excalibur was the only dehydrator in the marketplace. Now there's dozens on Amazon, and the price has been reduced to about 1/10. So they have mechanized robotics that have enabled it to reduce the cost of production and everything like that. Juicers, my God, how many different choices. And then the supplement market, more and more emphasis on whole food, resurgence being driven. Right now, from our market prior to 2000, or somewhere around 2000 in USA, in fermented foods, right now it's about 200, from 2 billion, went up to basically over 200 billion fermentation. Basically, the world is changing. We are the future, and basically we're the future, not only diet, but the future lifestyles. And in our language, you probably heard mindful breathing. Well, you also, mindful breathing was introduced into all New York school system after doing extensive research and improving the health of the children, and their also academic performance and reduction of asocial behavior. Now, what about mindful eating? That's a buzzword. Basically, Harvard.ed basically defined, at least at the time when I looked, they do a lot of sanitizing to make it more like mass media. But at that time, it said basically, it means, first of all, it's a plant-based nutrition. Secondly, because how could it be a mindful diet when all the research indicates anything other than plant diet? And you can go to Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine.org, PCRM.org, and you'll find that their research, and they got all the documentations and everything, and you can get a diploma becoming a vegan kind of a coach. And basically, it shows that not only is vegan diet based on the whole foods and with variety, it provides all the nutrients needed basically for health, but anything contrary to vegan diets contrary to good health. And basically, even in early 1970s, I think it was 1971, January issue of National Geographic's on longevity, it showed that basically showed that the 3 longest lived cultures, they were living on predominantly vegan diet and consuming around 35 grams of protein, 1,500 calories, and people are saying they would be starving on 1,500. Yet the #1 deadlifting athlete, he's not only vegan, he's also 1 meal per day, and also he's a spiritual master, has a degree in biochemistry, and he's the strongest deadlifting, and he's been holding that record for over a dozen years. He's already getting into his 50s. So basically, vegan diet is just super powerful, and is being preferred by more athletes, by all celebrities, and restaurants are doing. So in the past, it was hard to get people to do vegan diet because they didn't have the education, they didn't have the facilities like good restaurants, and just keep on improving and simplifying, and kind of aligning yourself to more microgreens and sprouts, and basically other good health practices that I mentioned. So exercise is being very much emphasized, and they did studies in sports medicine. For instance, they would take someone who's depressed or full of anxiety and basically having panic attacks, and basically put them on a treadmill, and within 5 minutes, the brain scan patterns started changing. They started looking more like of a healthy individual. Within 30 minutes, the brain patterns had changed. They're happy campers. I prove that every day. I exercise 90 to 120 minutes doing Qigong and yoga. And I call it the youth in yoga because it involves complete regenerative process. So basically, Others, Moscow Psychiatric Institute, published in Schizophrenia Review. They took all forms of mental disorders, put them on a liquid program, and basically exercise 3 hours a day. 90% of them had complete recovery, including Alzheimer's disease, which is a disease of basically enzymatic deficiency and high overdose of protein. So an acidification, which leads to much very rapid meltdown of your own protein structure. So alkalinity is our body is electrical. The strength of your muscles, the strength of your body responds. It's not so much the mass of your muscles, because you see some of the strongest animals, they're quite slim. And basically, and they often don't do much exercising. The reason is the body builds itself to the potential of that particular genetic anatomy. And basically, so the strongest animal in the jungle is basically a gorilla. And basically no one could compete with them for strength. And they have basically anatomy very much like humans. And they live on basically primarily baby greens that they pick, and they might eat also a little bit of fruit, because it's not so much available in the jungle. It's something that's available in orchards. It has to do with farming and domestication of trees into high fruit producing qualities. So they live primarily simple, and there's, like I said, the strongest animal. And alkalinity, basically each one of your cells, which you have about 60 or up to 100 trillion cells, and each one of them are tiny little batteries. And these tiny little batteries basically have a nucleus which is acidic and a cytoplasm around it which is alkaline. So it generates the voltage. The highest voltage generated is 1.5. In a book written by Dr. George Washington Kohler, basically the book was entitled The Bipolar Process of Living Foods. Bipolar process of, you can find it, it's also bipolar process. Anyways, basically he said every form of death is associated to declining pH, declining electron voltage of the cells when it reaches a critical level where it's not able to carry on normal function. It becomes either a senescent cell, which is non-functional, and it's only a matter before it kicks over, or zombie cells, which continue to function, but at the same time creating a lot of toxins in this environment. And basically they're going to be attacked eventually by natural killer cells and macrophages and gotten rid of. So it's a cleanup operation. So basically, and your tissues are made up of a series of cells, and the tissues compose your muscle, and the muscle total power is depending on electro voltage of everything. Most, 99% of Americans, well maybe 97% of Americans and throughout the world, they're on an acid diet. You flush out the acidity by adequate hydration, but even more so from dietary and liquids. They drink all liquid beverages, including basically, I know sub-acid, acid food, they're all acid. And basically all cooked food become acid by disorganizing the mineral structure, losing the electrons, they become free radicals. So basically cooked foods and processed foods, they're all acidic, and basically most people are indulging in that stuff. So whereas the only alkaline foods are vegetables, green vegetables especially, and also basically greens, especially baby greens, microgreens, and they have the highest levels, as well as soaked seeds and nuts. The fermented foods are acidic, Basically, that's why you use them in moderation. If you discontinue Dan Wigmore's Rejuvelat for reasons because it was so acidifying on your body, a little bit, an ounce or two was going to be beneficial, but most people were drinking a quart and more, and that's not good. That includes also kimchi that you end up, not kimchi, excuse me, kombucha tea that people are drinking by the cans. You know, I had one woman who came to me for a consultation. She was a raw foodist vegan and everything, good lifestyles, but she was losing her hair. She had no energy. Her skin was breaking out, and she had migraines. And I asked her, how much liquid do you take? I always check on that. She said, 6 to 8 cups. And her lifestyle was so good. I said, well, what kind of liquids do you do? Oh, kombucha tea. That was poisoning her. And that's the way a lot of people over-exaggerate. Initially, you feel buzz and everything. I've overdone acids myself. And I know what that overall feels like. Even right now, I have that kimchi. Oh my God, is it delicious? So is the sauerkraut. You can overdo that stuff. So you like your body can consume very well 10 to 20%, depending on your genetic makeup, of basically sour foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and they're part of a good thing. And so alkalinity establishes not only your neurological strength, your brain strength. In Bhagavad Gita, the great Vedic text over there, they have diet being created in 3 major categories. The lower one, tamasic, basically is people who eat cooked and overcooked food or processed foods, and basically says they don't have the vitality to do any kind of mental work, and they're suited for labor force and taking directives. Then the Rajasic was warriors, people who are on heavy meat, stimulating foods. Meats all contain basically uric acid. Uric acid is a stimulant. You can see that when you drink beef broth tea, basically stimulating has a structure almost identical to caffeine with dioxypurine and trioxypurine. And basically, so these were warriors. They're completely out of control. They can lead countries, lead societies, fight like crazy, but they do not contain a sustainable system. And we see exactly what the hell is going on with our political system. All our leaders are basically on a Rajasic diet, and they're deadly, they're dangerous, basically, and even those who try, they have so much opposition. So basically we have a system that is on a stage of collapse as we're moving into the Aquarian age, and it's happening this year. So, and it's happening around the corner. So basically, and then the highest level is sattvic, and sattvic is basically eating food that's created as comes from the Creator. Just like in Genesis 1:29, it's basically eating the greens, eating the fruit, the berries, but basically, and that is according to the Vedic philosophy. Sattvic diet is suitable for spiritual and mental work. Dr. Gabriel Cousens, Doctor of Spiritual Nutrition, and I wrote a long introduction on quantum field, and basically that he wrote and spirituality. Basically he says, in order to really rise to the highest level of spirituality, basically, and that means being able to dive deeply into inner explorations and becoming all love is basically on a loving diet of non-violence, which would be living foods. And so basically he had great pushback by most of the yogis. So the alkaline diet is really for mental, emotional voice, and basically, and also, I do want to mention something before, so I won't forget. Now, you might have no earlobes, okay? But let me tell you, you eat seaweed, you eat plant-based diet, you eat little sea salt, which becomes organic. It's inorganic minerals, but your microbes eat up this and basically convert it into organic mineral compounds in your body, can use it biologically in rebuilding its enzymes, rebuilding metabolism and other structures, and creating powerful DNA. So basically, minerals, if you do that, within a period of a year or so, your genetic makeup has been converted into that of someone who have long earlobes, because your body cells, like I said, everything is going through regenerative rebuilding. They either build superior cells or they build inferior cells, depending on your overall environment. So don't worry about your earlobes. Just because you might not have it doesn't mean you can. No, you can regenerate. Give you an example of we had from Australia. We had eight guests come in as a group to do a retreat with me. So thank you. Do a retreat with me, and basically they did the live food, and the husband and wife, one was a nurse, vegan, and the husband was a medical doctor, vegan, and they had a child with them who was 16 years old. He had earlobes that was about 1.5 inches long. The guy at 16, he was basically finishing college and all that. Just like if you can look up Little Richard and Google up Little Richard, you'll see at 8 years old, he was finishing college already. And he had perfect health, bodybuilding. Parents were not only vegan, but also they raised them in very social environment that encouraged expansion of consciousness and all that was. So they were great Qigong masters, as well as black belt in karate and yoga postures. So basically, what I'm saying is tremendous possibility. So minerals important, basically and they're going to realkalize you. The chewing is very important. And then the enzyme support and probiotics is the other big one. There's an excellent book, which is a New York Times bestseller called Fiber Fuel by Dr. Bolshevitz. I'm an acquaintance of his, and he himself was a meteor, like a regular gastroenterologist, and as he was pursuing the research over a period of few years, he saw that the most important thing that you could do is to help your microbial culture environment is to be eating basically a high diversity of plant-based foods. And he gave up all meat. He ended up eating now only whole foods. He recommends to eat at least a variety of 15 different plant-based foods every week, and also to emphasize a plant-based nutrition. And he's got all the documentation and the larger diversity. So by larger diversity, the different microbes exist on that, and they're the producers of not only like for instance, producing serotonin, dopamine. 90% of it is produced by microbial cultures, but also the study that was done by Oolong and Huxley showed that basically with the Papua New Guinea's tribe, that they were on a high fiber diet, eating only 5% protein from the outside, but they were eating all this high fiber and basically having quite a few bowel movements. When they couldn't figure out how the hell can anybody stay on 5 grams of protein, well, they found out that they were getting another 30 grams of protein that is from the microbes. They fixated nitrogen from the air. So anyways, so microbes are extremely important. And right now, Bolshevitz on some of his lectures on School of Greatness, and also on another podcast called Reality Revolution, 2 podcasts that I listen every day. And basically, he was interviewed, and he was talking about fecal transplant. You know, people, all the different diseases they tried to reverse with fecal transplant, they were successful. And that included colitis, and they included pretty rapidly because the microbes are your most powerful regenerative. They're creating tons of enzymes. They're also making all kind of nutraceutical call, including small chain fatty acids. So they're building. And lastly, I just want to mention is stress. Stress is something that you can manage by just the word emotion. If you basically has the word motion with an E in front of it. Negative emotions can be gotten rid of quickly if you respond immediately by just looking left, right, or someone asks you a question that you don't really feel uncomfortable to give you an example. You just ask them a different question. They forget the question they asked, and also you just carry on conversation. Stay away from negative thoughts. Stay away from, and you can control it through the Harvard breath. Deep inhalation, hold the breath for a count of 7, exhale slowly for a count of 8. Again, repeat it, and it completely works within 3, 4. My mind can be running rampant with all kind of ideas at night, and I can't fall asleep. I'll do the Harvard breath, and I'll just completely, my mind shuts down. I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed, and I'm falling asleep. It's very important to catch early and don't dwell on the past. Try to live more and more in the eternal now, and take time, at least 5, but get up to 20 and 30 minutes a day, a couple times a day, where you just go into being by yourself, a place of stillness, and review your life. Just listen to the sound of your breathing. Especially if you lay down, you're going to do well. And over here, if you want lots of energy increase, just lay down for 20, 30 minutes every day to regenerate your spine, which is stressed out greatly by the vertical activities that you carry on. As you realkalize, your body becomes stronger, healthier, more vital, and you start also emotional detoxification. For me, it has been a long process, right into the late 70s and 80s, but I've got to the point where I'm really feel happy, which is, something. Before that it was all, people thought I was happy, but it's called fake it till you make it. And I just kept on growing, and relationships are some of the most important places to grow as an individual. So, and that's the place where I experimented and, got over a lot of my emotional stuff of childhood and whatever. So we can grow younger biologically, or we can grow older as we go into our chronology. So there's no reason for you. In my attitude is, you are never too old to become younger again, and you are never too old to start the healing process. We have had people in their 90s come over here. So, and basically, the last thing I want to mention is, yes, there's a storm coming along our way. I survived 2 storms over the 5 years, or hurricanes, and basically all kind of safety is provided, especially in these 2 buildings, La Vida and also Wigmore Hall. So whatever is needed, precaution will be made for everyone here, so you can feel comfortable and reassured that you're in good hands, and God is overlooking, and Wigmore is sending prayers, and big dome over this place. And we're going to make it through the storms. So God bless you, and I do consultations. I do a couple a day, and if anybody's interested, they can see Maria or myself, or maybe just leave your phone number, and we'll call you back. So love is the way, and everything is nothing but fear. So stay in that space, and just enjoy and touch. Do a lot of hugging. Hugging is beautiful, sharing one another. God bless you.